In a lavishly decorated room, the air is thick with tension. A grand chandelier hangs above, casting a cold light on a conversation that's about to change everything. A voice breaks the silence, coldly stating that Zenus hasn't been pulling his weight lately. Meet Zenus, a modest healer with a calm but weary expression. He's standing before his team, the top-tier party led by Aston. But instead of praise for his hard work, he's met with a brutal reality. Aston, a bearded warrior in heavy armor, bluntly tells him they don't need him anymore. Zenus can only mutter a confused, "huh," as the world he knew begins to crumble. Aston scoffs, mocking Zenus for just standing and staring during battles. Zenus tries to defend himself, his voice small as he insists that he's been useful to everyone. He can't believe they discard him like this after everything they've been through. But Aston and the rest of the party just stand there with arrogant smirks. They claim they've become so powerful that no one can hurt them anymore, rendering Zenus' dodgy self-taught magic useless. Zenus tries to remind them of the healing spells, the defenses, and the combat enhancements he meticulously cast to keep them safe, but they aren't listening. Aston dismisses it all as bullshit. He mocks the traditional way of healing, the chanting and the magic circles, claiming that it's too slow to be of any real help in the heat of battle. To them, Zenus was never a vital member, just a burden. The insults get personal. Aston jabs a finger at Zenus, calling him a slum rat who makes the party look bad. Now that they're trying to impress nobility and royalty, they feel Zenus' lowly background is a stain on their reputation. Zenus looks on, speechless at the sheer cruelty of it all. The room erupts in mocking laughter. Zenus cries out, reminded of how they once called him a part of the team. But his words only fuel their amusement. You seriously haven't noticed? Aston laughs, the betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound. Aston leans in close, his voice a sinister whisper. He admits the ugly truth. They never cared about him. They just wanted free labor. He looms over Zenus, the power dynamic shifting as the healer realizes he's been played this entire time. Aston's eyes are cold and predatory. He explains that a kid from the slums like Zenus was perfect because he wouldn't complain about hunger or being left outside. More than that, they could have used him as a guilt-free scapegoat if things ever went south. The level of malice is staggering. As the party turns their backs on him, Zenus is left standing in the doorway, a small figure in a large, uncaring world. The realization hits him hard. He never belonged here. Not once since the very beginning. Zenus reflects on the harsh social hierarchy of his country, where the poor are always at the bottom, facing deep-seated discrimination. Despite always having the most modest accommodations, he never stopped polishing his skills, hoping for a better future. He remembers the day he joined. He did it for Aston, thinking the man had taken a chance on a slum rat like him. Back then, he was just happy to have finally found a place where he thought he belonged. That hope seems like a cruel joke now. Zenus wasn't able to get a formal education in magic. Instead, he spent countless nights studying on his own by the light of a dim lantern, teaching himself everything he knew. His dedication was born out of a desire to be indispensable. He pored over books, cast spells to aid his party against fearsome dragons, and endured their poor treatment, all while trying his absolute best to be useful. He thought his efforts would eventually be recognized, but instead they were just exploited. A bittersweet memory of Zenus smiling while reading his magic book flashes by. He did everything he could, and yet it still wasn't enough to earn their respect or their loyalty. Aston dismissively tosses a single gold coin onto the floor. It rolls and clinks, a pathetic reward for years of service. He tells Zenus that it's the kind of thing a poor bastard like him would never get his hands on otherwise. The disrespect is palpable. Aston grabs Zenus by the collar, issuing a final, threatening warning. Never tell anyone that a slum rat like him was ever a part of their elite party. He wants Zenus erased from their history entirely. Zenus looks at the coin in his hand with a hollow gaze. He realizes this isn't a reward, it's hush money. With a quiet, very well, he turns to leave, the weight of the betrayal settling into a cold resolve. As Zenus walks down the long, lonely hallway, The arrogant party members continue their conversation, oblivious to the truth. They have no idea who really made them the top-tier team they are today. Without their silent protector, their fall is only a matter of time. Zenas steps out into the town, his back to the life he once knew. Neither he nor the party could have guessed that this parting would be the major twist of fate that changes everything for all of them. Standing before a bulletin board, Zenas faces a grim reality. He can't officially register with the guild, and without a party, he remains poor. Now what? He wonders, his options limited by a system designed to keep people like him down. As Zenas wanders through an alley, he hears shouting. A merchant is berating another man for shooting their merchandise. Zenas stops, a sense of dread washing over him as he looks toward the source of the commotion. There, on the cold stone ground, lies a young elf girl with an arrow protruding from her back. She's small and fragile, her hands bound, her life force slowly draining away into the shadows of the alley. This is Lily, and her fate is about to cross with Zenas. The slave merchants aren't mourning a life, they're mourning lost profit. They callously argue over who's to blame for the damaged goods, already labeling the dying girl a goner. Zenas steps forward, his heart heavy with shock and a growing sense of indignation at their cold-blooded calculation. When a lead merchant tells Zenas to stay out of it, claiming the girl is just broken property, something in Zenas snaps. He knows exactly what it feels like to be treated as a disposable tool. Instead of walking away, he reaches into his pocket, ready to make an offer they simply can't refuse. Zenas doesn't hesitate. He holds out the gold coin Aston gave him, the hush money meant to silence his past, and offers it to the merchants. "I'll take her off your hands, then," he says firmly. The merchants are stunned. They think he's a fool for wasting a gold coin on a slave who's already at death's door. But for Zenas, this isn't a waste. It's a chance to save a life. The lead merchant snatches the coin with a greedy grin. To him, it's a win-win. He gets a gold coin for property that was going to die anyway. He dismisses Zenas with a wave of his hand, saying he doesn't see the problem. If Zenas wants a corpse, he can have it. They walk away, laughing at the idiot they just swindled. Zenas ignores them and kneels beside the young elf girl. She's barely conscious, groaning in pain as she lies in the dirt. He speaks to her softly, checking if she's okay, before gripping the arrow protruding from her back. He knows he has to act fast if he's going to save her. With a sharp, decisive Y&K, Zenas pulls the arrow out. Blood splatters, but his expression remains calm and focused. He doesn't have time for hesitation or the slow rituals his former party obsessed over. He knows exactly what he's doing. In the next instant, Zenas places his hand over the gaping wound. A soft, brilliant light begins to glow, swirling around his palm. He's not just treating a scratch. He's closing a lethal injury with a level of precision and speed that most healers can only dream of. He watches the girl closely, ensuring the magic takes hold. The girl, Lily, can hardly believe what's happening. She was sure her life was over. Yet she feels the pain vanishing and her strength returning. Zenas reassures her, his voice steady as he tells her she'll be fine and that the wound isn't as bad as it looks. Her wide eyes reflect a mixture of terror and budding hope. Lily sits up, her hands trembling as she looks at her back. "Look, your wound's gone," Zenas says simply. She's speechless, her mouth hanging open in utter disbelief. One moment she was dying, and the next, there's not even a scar left. It's a miracle she can't quite wrap her head around. "I'm a healer," Zenas explains, as if restoring someone from the brink of death in seconds is perfectly normal. Lily is still in shock, stammering about how she was so sure she was going to die. She touches her back where the arrow had been, finding only smooth skin where there should have been a hole. Lily stares at Zenas as if he's some kind of god. When he tells her it was hardly a scratch, and no big deal, she can only gape at him. To her, it was a fatal wound. To him, it was just another day's work. His casual attitude toward his immense power is both baffling and awe-inspiring to her. Zenas continues to check on her, his demeanor kind and attentive. Lily, still overwhelmed, looks down at her hands, her hair falling over her face. The reality that she's alive and free is finally starting to sink in, and the weight of Zena's kindness is almost too much to bear. The dam finally breaks, and Lily starts to cry, not from pain, but from sheer gratitude. She clutches Zenas' arm, sobbing out her thanks. Zenas looks a bit surprised, his expression softening as he takes in her heartfelt appreciation. It's a far cry from the cold dismissal he received from Aston earlier. Zenas reflects on how long it's been since anyone actually thanked him for healing them. Through years of arduous training, he learned how to cast healing spells instantly, yet no one in his old party believed him. They were too stuck in their ways to see the genius standing right in front of them. Now, looking at Lily, he knows his path was the right one. The two of them sit in the quiet alley, the immediate danger past. Zenas asks Lily if those men were slavers, and she quietly confirms it, telling him she was captured only yesterday. The world she's lived in is a cruel one, and Zenas is starting to realize just how much they have in common. Both treated like dirt by those who felt superior. Lily tells him that she saw an opening and tried to run, but they caught her. Zenas asks for her name, and she softly replies, Lily. Despite the trauma she's endured, there's a quiet strength in her eyes that Zenas respects. He's already decided he's not going to let her face the world alone. Lily asks if he's a famous healer, but Zenas just smiles and says he's self-taught and that no one's ever heard of him. When she brings up the gold coin he paid for her, he tells her not to worry about it, that it was dirty money anyway. He's taking the betrayal of his former party and turning it into a new beginning for both of them. When Zenas asks where her home is so he can walk her there, Lily's expression falls. I don't have one, she admits, her voice small. She's an elven child alone on the streets, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Zenas' heart sinks as he realizes the magnitude of her situation. Zenas looks at her, a deep sense of empathy washing over him. He sees himself in her, a young soul rejected by the world, left to fend for himself in the slums. He knows that an elven child living on the streets is unacceptable and dangerous. He's not just saving her life today. He's taking responsibility for her future. Suddenly, a loud grumble breaks the serious mood. Lily looks up, startled, as Zenas realizes they're both starving. He manages a small smile and suggests they get something to eat. Lily's face lights up at the prospect, a flicker of joy returning to her after a day of horror. Inside a cozy eatery, Lily is absolutely delighted. This is so good, she exclaims, her eyes shining as she takes a big bite. It's probably the first real meal she's had in a long time. Zenas watches her, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes as he sees her finally starting to feel safe and cared for. As they eat, Zenas opens up a bit, telling her how he was recently kicked from his party and has nowhere to go himself. Lily smiles brightly, saying, "So you're just like me?" The bond between them solidifies in that moment, two outcasts finding solace in each other's company. Meanwhile, a waitress brings over more food, the bustling atmosphere of the restaurant providing a stark contrast to the dark alley where they met. Zenas takes a sip of his water, his expression thoughtful. He knows he needs to find work soon to support them both. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps and an urgent, "Excuse me," interrupts his thoughts. Someone is in desperate need of help, and it's about to bring Zenas' next challenge right to his table. A man bursts into the room, gasping for water and clearly in distress. Zenas turns around to see a figure with scales on his cheeks. Is he a lizard man? The air in the restaurant shifts as everyone stares at the newcomer, whose desperate appearance suggests a life-or-death situation. Zenas approaches the man, his professional instincts kicking in. He notices the horrific state of the man's arm. It's covered in severe burns and what looks like a bullet wound. The sight is grisly, enough to make most people turn away in disgust. But Zenas remains calm as he asks what happened. This is a level of injury that would stump most ordinary healers. The lizard man winces in agony, explaining he was shot by a magical gun. Already resigned to losing the arm, he merely begs for something, anything, to dull the excruciating pain. Zenas silently examines the mangled flesh, his calm focus a sharp contrast to the victim's desperation. The lizard man is stunned when Zenas casually remarks that the wound is no big deal and will heal quickly. The hell are you talking about? He stammers, completely unaware that he's about to witness a miracle that defies everything he knows about healing. Zenas doesn't wait for a reply. He simply places his hand on the lizardman's mangled arm and whispers, "Cure." A soft radiance, like stardust, begins to swirl around the injury, beginning a process that should be impossible for a self-taught healer in a common restaurant. In the blink of an eye, the horrific burns and the bullet wound vanish. The lizard man stares at his arm, flexing his fingers in utter shock. He mutters, his mind unable to grasp how a mortal wound could be erased so completely and so quickly. To him, it's nothing short of a miracle. Lily can't contain her excitement. She throws her arms out wide, announcing to the room that Zenas is a super great healer. Zenas, however, looks a bit flustered by the sudden spotlight. Meanwhile, the lizard man is still reeling, wondering who the hell this unassuming young man actually is. He just had his life and livelihood restored by a total stranger. The lizard man isn't one to leave a debt unpaid. He pulls out a few coins and drops them onto the table with a satisfying clink. Holy hell, he breathes, admitting he had no clue a healer this amazing even existed. He looks Zenas in the eye and promises to remember him. This isn't just a payment. It's the first bit of genuine respect Zenas has earned for his own skills. As the lizard man walks out the door, Zenas stares down at the coins in his palm. Lily, noticing his serious expression, asks what's wrong. Zenas is having an epiphany. Cooks get paid to make food, so it only makes sense that healers should get paid for healing people. For the first time, he's starting to see his talent as a business, not just a service for those who look down on him. Zenas reflects on the gratitude he felt from Lily and the honest payment from the lizard man. It's a feeling of satisfaction he never got from Aston's party. He looks at Lily, a quiet resolve forming in his mind. All right, it's settled, he says, the pieces of his new life finally falling into place. With a newfound sense of purpose, Zenas looks directly at the audience and Lily and makes a bold declaration. I'm going to open a clinic. He's done being someone else's tool. It's time to build something of his own. He explains the reality of the situation to Lily. He's poor, and the system is rigged against him, so he can't get a license or register a business legally. His only choice is to operate on the down low as a shadow healer. It's a dangerous path, but it's the only way for him to truly be free. Lily's response is immediate and enthusiastic. Oh, I'll help. She cheers, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Zenas is caught off guard by her eagerness, but as he looks at his new companion, he realizes he doesn't have to do this alone. And so, in the shadows of the city, the legend of the brilliant shadow healer begins. Zenas, a skilled healer with messy black hair and a dark coat, agrees to let Lily, the young elf girl he just rescued, stay with him for now. He decides to live his life his own way from now on, without caring about what others think. If he can make someone happy while he's at it, then that's not a bad way to live. They arrive at a desolate, ruined town. Lily looks around at the crumbling stone buildings and asks Zenas if he's really serious about opening a clinic in such a deserted place. Zenas explains that this ghost town was wiped out by a plague long ago. For someone like him who wants to run an unlicensed business, it's the perfect hiding spot. Lily follows him closely, her long ears twitching with unease as they approach a large, broken-down house. Lily warns him that monsters tend to spawn in places where many people have died. She's especially worried about wraiths, powerful undead that linger in the shadows. Zenas, however, remains calm as they step onto the creaking floorboards of their new home. Lily describes wraiths as high-level undead that can steal a person's life force with just a touch. As the door creaks open, the atmosphere inside the ruined house feels heavy and cold. To help light the way, Lily uses a simple light spell. Zenas is surprised she can use magic, but she humbly explains it's only basic stuff. The small glowing orb illuminates the dusty, dilapidated room. Zenas inspects the interior, thinking that with a little work, the place could actually be livable. But suddenly, a chilling presence fills the air, and Lily freezes in terror. A floating figure appears before them, a wraith in a dark kimono with long black hair. Lily screams in fear as the ghost stares them down with hollow, haunting eyes. The wraith whispers about smelling their life force. Lily is panicking, wondering why Zenas is acting so casual in front of such a dangerous creature. Zenas just looks around, commenting that this is indeed the most comfortable building in the area. The wraith drifts toward Zenas, demanding his life force. Lily cries out his name, terrified that her savior is about to have his soul drained away. Instead of flinching, Zenas reaches out and calmly activates his magic. "Cure," he says softly, as a brilliant white light begins to radiate from his hand. The healing light blasts the wraith back, causing her to scream in agony. Zenas casually mentions that he's defeated over 100 of her kind in deep underground labyrinths before. He ignores her shock and politely asks if they can borrow a room. The wraith is sizzled by the purity of the spell, unable to believe a human could use healing magic this way. Zenas just stands there with a blank expression, waiting for an answer while his magic continues to overwhelm her. Furious, the ghost reveals her true identity: Carmilla, the Lich Queen. She's insulted that a mere human has dared to incur her wrath and refuses to back down. Carmilla summons a swarm of shadowy underlings, ordering them to show Zenas the meaning of true torment. The room is suddenly filled with menacing, ghostly figures. Zenas sighs, disappointed that he couldn't just settle things the easy way. Lily is trembling beside him, her eyes wide as the shadows close in on them. The shadowy underlings pounce from every direction. Zenas doesn't move a muscle, his finger poised as he prepares to release a much more powerful spell. A ring of pure energy expands from Zenas, shielding them from the ghosts. The divine light cuts through the darkness, pushing back the encroaching shadows. High cure. Zenas unleashes a massive explosion of healing magic. The entire room is engulfed in a blinding flash, disintegrating the underlings and purifying the corrupted air of the house. Carmilla is left trembling, sweat beading on her ghostly face. She stares at Zenas in utter shock, stammering as she asks what kind of monster he actually is. Zenas just shrugs and calls himself a plain old shadow healer. He repeats his request for a room to use as a clinic and a bedroom, leaving the once mighty Lich Queen completely speechless. An agreement is finally reached. Carmilla keeps the second floor for herself, while Zenas is free to do what he wants with the first. Zenas is happy with the outcome, but Lily is still trying to process how they just negotiated with a legendary wraith. Sometime later, Lily is dressed in a new outfit, looking a bit weary. She gazes out at the ruined town, wondering if anyone will actually come to their clinic. With some repairs and a lot of cleaning, the old building is finally starting to look like a real clinic. Zenas carries the last boxes of supplies, satisfied with their new base, but Lily can't help but sigh at the quiet atmosphere. It's been days, and the silence in the room is starting to feel a bit heavy. Lily suggests going outside to find some patients, but Zenas quickly warns her against it. Advertising carelessly would only alert the Royal Institute of Healing, and they can't afford that kind of attention. They'll just have to stay in the shadows and wait, hoping that anyone, will eventually walk through those doors. Zenas remains optimistic despite the lack of patience, calmly telling Lily that someone is bound to come soon. His prediction comes true much faster than expected when a knock sounds at the door. Lily is ecstatic, exclaiming that their first customer has actually arrived at the clinic. A man with sharp, lizard-like eyes and scaly skin on his face steps inside. Lily is taken aback, realizing she's seen this man before. He's clearly someone from the rougher side of town. Zenas looks on calmly as the newcomer, Zond, enters their humble clinic. "There you are," Zenas says, as if he's been expecting him all along. Zond is surprised, questioning how Zenas knew he was coming. The atmosphere in the room immediately tenses up as the two men lock eyes. Zenas notes that people from the less-than-respectable parts of society often have reasons they can't visit an ordinary clinic. He takes one look at Zon's arm and identifies the injury. A severe burn from a magical gun, certainly not the kind of wound a typical citizen would ever receive. Zond admits he's been searching for Zenas for a while, acknowledging that this is exactly where shadow healers like him shine. He then asks Zenas to take a look at his sister, who is waiting just outside the door. Zenas prepares himself, knowing this won't be a simple case. A tall, imposing lizardman woman with long, messy hair steps into the room. This is Zofia, the leader of a thief gang. She looks at Zenas with a smirk, mentioning that her brother claims he's an exceptional healer. Zenas remains humble, but agrees to examine her. Zofia sits down and reveals her right arm, which is covered in dark, vein-like patterns. She explains that she got shot in the arm and the condition has been rapidly worsening. Lily watches from aside, looking worried for their new patient. Zenas diagnoses the injury instantly. It's a wound from a magical gun with a poison effect, and the flesh around the bullet is necrotizing. Zofia is surprised he can tell just by looking, but she's more interested in whether he can actually cure it. Zenas notes that if it were a recent shot, it would be easy, but it's already been 3 days. Zenas bluntly tells Zofia that her arm is as good as dead and should be amputated before the poison spreads to the rest of her body. Zofia accepts the grim news with a sigh, but then Zenas drops the price. $1,000,001. The room goes silent at the staggering amount. Zon explodes in anger, shouting at Zenas for demanding such an outrageous fee just to cut off an arm. Lily is terrified as Zon grabs Zenas by the coat, while Zofia stays seated, her expression unreadable as her brother loses his cool. Zofia eyes Zenas coldly, reminding him of her identity as Galewind Zofia and accusing him of fleecing her. She looks at the young doctor, waiting to see if he'll fold under the pressure of her gaze. Zond pulls out a knife and holds it to Zenas' throat, demanding one good reason why they should accept such highway robbery. Zenas doesn't even flinch. He simply asks, who said anything about just cutting off an arm? The confusion on the lizardmen's faces is immediate. Zenas explains that he isn't just removing the limb. He's making her a completely new one. He declares that he's done working for free and expects payment commensurate with his effort. Zofia is stunned, as neither she nor any healer she's ever heard of has the power to regenerate a missing limb. The procedure begins. Zofia lies on the bed as Zenas stands over her. Now, let's begin, he says, his voice professional and calm. Lily and Zond watch from a distance, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Zenas manifests a magical scalpel made of pure energy. He explains that it's sanitary and he can create it at will. He then casts a healing over time spell locally to alleviate Zofia's pain before making the first cut to remove the necrotic arm. With a steady hand, Zenas performs the amputation. Zofia remains conscious, watching as the black, poisoned flesh of her arm is removed. Lily and Zond can hardly believe what they're witnessing as Zenas works with surgical precision. After removing the dead limb, Zenas uses a protective spell to immediately stem the bleeding. He tells himself that this is where the real work starts. His brow furrows in concentration as he prepares for the next phase of the miraculous healing process. Zenas begins to repeatedly cast a high-level healing spell, focusing all his energy on the stump of Zofia's arm. He explains that he's accelerating the natural regeneration process, something that requires an immense amount of magical control. Zofia watches in awe as a new skeleton and muscle tissue begin to sprout and knit together right before her eyes. It's a grotesque yet beautiful sight as the magic forces her body to rebuild itself. She can only mutter a confused, as the impossible becomes reality. The transformation is complete. Zenas exhales deeply, clearly exhausted by the effort. Zofia sits up, looking at her brand new arm in utter disbelief. Zond is just as stunned, his jaw dropping at the sight of his sister's fully restored limb. Holy crap, he mutters. The moment of triumph is interrupted when Carmilla the Wraith floats down from the ceiling. Zahn jumps back in terror, pointing a finger at the ghostly figure and shouting in alarm. Zenas calmly introduces her as the Wraith who lives with them, while Zofia admits she's never seen a healer quite like Zenas. Zond is still panicking about the ominous ghost, but Zenas tells him she's not so bad. Carmilla, meanwhile, makes a dark remark about wishing Zofia would have died instead. Zofia finds the whole situation hilarious and bursts into laughter, telling Zenas he's really something. Zofia stands up, fully impressed. She tells Zenas that she likes him and promises to send all her subordinates his way from now on. She assures him they'll pay in full, effectively making him the go-to doctor for her Underworld gang. Lily watches them leave, still a bit stunned by the day's events. Zofia and Zond head back into the slums, leaving the clinic with a wave. Just as she promised, word of the miraculous shadow healer begins to spread through the city's dark corners, and Zenas' new life is officially in motion. A steady stream of lizardmen from Zofia's gang soon fills the clinic, making for a busy first few days. As the final patient of the day leaves, Zenas, Lily, and even Carmilla gather around the table, finally finding a moment to catch their breath and enjoy a warm cup of tea together. Thanks to Zofia's referrals, the lizardman thieves have been visiting the clinic nonstop. Zenas, Lily, and even Carmilla are taking a small break, enjoying some tea after a long day of work. Lily asks why the lizard people are always injured, and Zenas explains they're likely constantly fighting other factions in the slums. Zenas explains the power balance of the slums, where three major demi-human factions hold sway. First, the lizard men led by Zofia, and second, the powerful orc tribe known for their immense strength and stout physiques. The Underworld is a dangerous place where violence is the only language. Just as Zenas is about to mention the third faction, a thunderous BM shakes the front door. Lily jumps in surprise as several large, muscular werewolves burst into the room. Zenas remains calm, his eyes narrowing as he realizes the third power of the slums has finally arrived at his doorstep. The werewolves look around the dilapidated building, impressed that a functioning clinic actually exists in such a godforsaken ghost town. Their presence is overwhelming, filling the small room with an air of raw, animalistic power. Stepping forward from the group is a woman with wolf-like ears and sharp, confident features. She asks if Zenas is the famous shadow healer everyone has been talking about. This is Linga, the feared leader of the slum's werewolves. Zenas sighs, realizing he's dealing with yet another big shot from the Underworld. He acknowledges her as Linga the Tyrant, one of the three major faction leaders. Despite the late hour, he asks how he can possibly help someone as powerful as her. Zenas tells her that they've already closed for the day, but he's willing to make an exception if there's a genuine emergency. Linga doesn't hesitate. She points a clawed finger directly at Zenas' chest and declares that the emergency is right here. The chapter ends on a high-stakes cliffhanger as Linga stares intensely at the young doctor. "It's you, Zenas," she says with a mysterious smirk. It seems the shadow healer's skills have attracted a very different, and potentially far more dangerous, kind of attention. In the Monster City, the clinic is packed. Linga, the fierce leader of the werewolves, is complaining about how Zofia's goons keep recovering no matter how hard they're beaten. Zenas, meanwhile, is just trying to do his job as a healer, though he doesn't seem to be paying much attention to the politics. Linga isn't here to make peace. She wants Zenas to heal her own men so she can finally crush Zofia's gang once and for all. Her wolfish instincts are on full display as she prepares for another round of violence. Suddenly, one of the goons tries to jump Zenas, but it's like hitting a brick wall. "That did nothing," the wolf yells in shock. Zenas just stands there with his usual deadpan expression, barely reacting to the attempt on his life. The werewolves aren't giving up. They swarm Zenas, their axes and claws swinging in a frantic attempt to take him down. Lily, his young elf assistant, watches from the side with wide, worried eyes. Once the dust settles, Zenas is standing perfectly fine, not a scratch on him. The werewolves, on the other hand, are huffing and puffing, completely exhausted. Frustrated, Linga orders them to just tear the whole clinic down instead. The goons take the order literally, swinging their heavy axes into the wooden walls. They figure if they can't kill the doctor, they can at least destroy his lair. It's a bold move, but they've forgotten one very important thing. The temperature in the room suddenly drops. A terrifying presence fills the air as a wraith appears out of nowhere. The werewolves freeze in terror, realize they've just disturbed something far more dangerous than a simple healer. Zenas doesn't miss a beat. He looks right at the ghost and casually mentions he's just a guest here. The werewolves are trembling, their tough act completely shattered by the sight of the spectral figure. The wraith is Carmilla, the spirit of the Lost Garden. She's furious that these thugs are trashing her home. Zenas steps in, calmly telling her to hold up. He knows she's mad, but he reminds her that this clinic is a place for saving lives, not taking them. To everyone's surprise, Carmilla actually listens. She huffs and stands down, admitting that the place is at least cozier than it used to be. The werewolves can't believe their eyes. This man just talked down a high-ranking wraith. The mood shifts instantly from terror to total reverence. Linga and her men are in complete shock. They realize that if Zenas can command a wraith, he's on a whole different level than they imagined. Next thing you know, the entire werewolf squad is on the floor, groveling and begging for forgiveness. Zenas just stands there, looking more annoyed than impressed. He really just wanted to get through the day without his house being torn down. Zenas lets out a long sigh. All he wants is for people to just listen to him for once. Dealing with rowdy monsters is apparently more exhausting than the actual healing part of his job. But there's no rest for the weary. A massive orc messenger arrives with a summons. It seems Mistress Loey, the leader of the orc tribe, has heard of Zenas the Shadow Healer and wants to see him personally. Zenas isn't even surprised anymore. The orc explains that Loey can't come to the clinic herself. She's gravely ill and unable to move. Zenas agrees that if the patient can't come to him, a house call is necessary. Lily looks on, curious about this new development. Zenas heads out, following the orc through the rough, dilapidated streets of the monster slums. Even as they walk, Lily waves goodbye from the clinic doorway, wishing him luck on his mission. They arrive at a hidden camp nestled among the rocky cliffs. The orc leads Zenas inside, announcing to his leader that he's brought the famous Shadow Healer. The atmosphere here is tense, filled with wounded warriors. Inside, he finally meets Mistress Loey. She's a striking dark elf with long, dark hair and an air of wild authority. She's sitting on a makeshift throne, looking far more composed than a gravely ill person should. "Hey there," she greets him with a smirk. Zenas is a bit skeptical about how famous he really is, but Loey assures him he's the talk of the town. Apparently, word travels fast when a human starts healing monsters in the middle of a war zone. Loey admits she really can't move, and it's quite a bummer for her. Zenas wasted no time, immediately beginning his diagnosis. He uses his magic to check her internally, searching for the source of her ailment. His magic reveals something terrifying. There's a powerful magic item lodged right in her stomach. Loey casually confirms it. "That's right. There's a massively powerful explosion stone in my belly. It's not a disease. It's a ticking time bomb." Zenas explains that explosion stones are the most dangerous kind of mana stones, capable of producing magic equal to high-level spells. He looks at her, horrified, and asks the obvious question. "Did someone trick you into swallowing it?" Loey just laughs it off, claiming she mistook it for a rice ball and gobbled it up because she eats so much. Zenas can barely believe his ears. "Are you stupid?" he blurted out, his professional mask slipping for a moment. It gets worse. She actually bit into the stone, chipping the outer layer and making the magic inside dangerously unstable. Zenas realizes this isn't just a medical emergency. It's a high-stakes bomb disposal, and one wrong move could end them all. The stone is set to detonate soon, and even the smallest vibration could trigger the blast. Zenas finally understands the gravity of the situation, but while he's looking for a solution, her loyal tribe is already starting to prepare for the absolute worst. Loi's orc guards are taking things a bit too far, offering to go with her or be there when she dies. Loi looks completely done with them, wishing they'd just leave her in peace for a second. They even try to donate all their assets to Zenus. He's just standing there, looking totally confused by this sudden offer of tribal riches. The orc guard holds out a fancy vault key. They figure if Loi is going to blow up and take them with her, they'd rather Zenus put their stuff to good use than let other thieves take it. Zenus catches the key, wondering how his day got this weird. Zenus still can't wrap his head around it. "Did you just eat it?" he asks, still stuck on the fact that she mistook a mana stone for a snack. Loi just smiles while her men pledge their eternal loyalty, even in the next life. It's time to get to work. Zenus confirms the stone is still in her stomach and immediately summons a magical scalpel. He tells her that as soon as he diagnosed her, he knew he had to act fast. "Stay still," Zenus commands. Loi looks a bit apprehensive as the glowing magical blade hovers near her. Realize the surgery is actually happening. With surgical precision, Zenus makes the incision. He casually warns her not to bite her tongue as he dives into the procedure, his eyes focused and intense. Loi looks terrified by the speed and directness of his treatment. There it is, the glowing explosion mana stone, nestled deep inside. Zenus has found the source of the danger, and it looks even more volatile up close. The orc guards see Zenus cutting into their leader and absolutely lose it. They swarm him, yelling at him to get away from Loi, completely missing the fact that he's already finished the hardest part. Zenus calmly holds up the removed stone, leaving the guards in total shock. He explains that he cut her open, took it out, and then used his magic to knit the wound shut instantly. Loi looks down at her stomach, baffled that he could actually do that. Loi is still panicking, worried that disturbing the stone will cause a massive explosion. Zenus isn't worried, though. He puts his hands together, muttering that this should do the trick. A magical glow intensifies as Zenus concentrates his power into his palms. He's about to deal with the stone's energy once and for all. The air vibrates with a sharp sheeing sound as the magic reaches its peak. Zenus isn't holding back. A massive rumble shakes the ground, echoing across the mountain camp as the suppressed energy is released. As the dust settles, Loi and her guards are huddled together, bracing for a blast that never quite comes. Instead, all they hear is a faint crumbling sound. Zenus stands there, completely uninjured, casually dusting off his hands. He admits it stung a little, so he had to heal his own palms too, but the danger is gone. "All done," he says with his usual deadpan tone. He hands the vault key back to a stunned Loi, telling her he'd rather not be called over for something as simple as this. He clearly doesn't feel like he needs all their tribal assets for a few minutes of work. Loi is so overwhelmed with gratitude that she pulls Zenus into a massive hug. "I like you, Shadow Healer Zenus," she cheers, completely ignoring his protest that his labor wasn't worth all their riches. She promises that if he's ever in a bind, the orcs will come running. Loi is starving now that the rice ball is gone, and her men even offer Zenus some food. He looks completely exhausted by the whole interaction, grumbling that he won't be saving them next time. Back at the clinic, Lily is sitting at the counter with a major pout. She lets out a long HMMPH as she waits for her boss to return. Zenus asks what's with the long face, and Lily finally snaps. She's annoyed that the three tribe leaders, Zofia, Linga, and Loi, are visiting the clinic way too often, even when they aren't even injured. Zenus finds it weird, but he doesn't seem to get the hint. Lily lays out the new schedule, Zofia on Mondays, Linga on Wednesdays, and Loi on Fridays. The clinic has basically become a rotation for these powerful demi-human women. Lily thinks they must just be really bored, since they're all important people who should be busy. Zenus is just as clueless, admitted he has even less of a clue than she does. Lily starts to say something else, but she's interrupted. Carmilla floats into the room, looking thoroughly amused by the tension. "Love, I would wager," she declares, dropping a truth bomb that leaves both Zenus and Lily completely blindsided by the suggestion. Carmilla insists her 3 centuries of experience don't lie. Those are definitely the gazes of women in love. Xena scoffs, insisting he's just a plain, unlicensed healer. But Lily can only stare at her oblivious boss, her worry deepening as she senses a chaotic storm of affection brewing right on their doorstep. Carmilla, the 300-year-old wraith, is clearly enjoying the drama. She teases Lily, telling her to do her best to regale her too, while casually mentioning that the 3 demi-human races might actually go to war over Xena's favor. Xenos, meanwhile, is in total denial, calling the whole idea ridiculous. With a mischievous ha-ha-ha, Carmilla vanishes into thin air, leaving Xenos and Lily alone in the clinic. Xenos is left scratching his head, wondering why she even showed up just to drop a truth bomb and leave. Monday rolls around, and true to Lily's prediction, Zofia shows up. She's not just there for a checkup, though. She casually mentions her group is planning to go to war with the others and tries to bribe Xenos into joining her side with a gift. Xenos can only mutter a confused, huh, as the chaos begins. Wednesday isn't any better. Linga, the upbeat but fierce werewolf leader, drops by with her own mountain of offerings. She's also decided to square off against the other factions and wants Xenos to stand with her tribe. Xenos is starting to break a sweat now. By Friday, Loey completes the trio of trouble. She marches in, arms crossed, and bluntly states they've decided to destroy their asses. Xenos is completely overwhelmed, fruitlessly trying to get everyone to just wait a second and calm down. Carmilla reappears, looking absolutely delighted by the mess. She laughs as she watches Xena struggle, knowing full well that a war between the 3 major factions is exactly what's about to happen. And it's all because of one very talented, very confused healer. Lily is still sulking, her face buried in her arms as she watches the 3 powerful women fight for her boss's attention. Carmilla, meanwhile, sarcastically thanks Xenos, pointing out that his popularity is literally going to bring about much death. Xenos is horrified, begging her to stop saying such insanely awful things. Xenos clutches his head, his face a mask of pure stress. Damn it! Why is this happening? He groans. He just wanted to open a peaceful clinic, but instead, he's become the accidental prize in a monster world power struggle. The stage is set. 3 powerful leaders, Loey of the Orcs, Linga of the Werewolves, and Zofia of the Catkins, stand ready. The battle between 3 women over 1 shadow healer is about to begin, and poor Xenos is right in the middle of the storm. Welcome back to Lost Garden. Today is the day the slums will finally decide who's the top dog around here. The tribes are gathered, the tension is thick, and the stakes? Well, it's all about who gets to claim our favorite doctor. But just as the first blow is about to land, a familiar voice rings out, bringing the entire arena to a dead halt. Everyone freezes. The fight they've been itching for just got interrupted. It's Xenos, appearing with little Lily by his side. The tribal leaders, Zofia, Linga, and Loey, are stunned. They assume he's there to play the hero and stop the violence. But Xenos has a very different plan in mind. Looking out over the massive crowd of warriors, Xenos reflects on his life in the slums. He knows how these tribal conflicts go, pointless, bloody, and never-ending. But he's not going to preach peace. He's going to facilitate it his way. Go ahead, knock yourselves out. Xenos shouts, shocking everyone. The leaders exchange looks, and Loey immediately UPS the ante. Last one standing gets him. Suddenly, the doctor's war has an official prize. Lily is horrified, asking if they're actually serious. Xenos just sighs, muttering that he definitely didn't agree to be anyone's property. But before he can complain more, the signal is given. The arena erupts. Steel clashes against scales and fur as the Nagas, Orcs, and Werewolves throw themselves into the fray. Zofia leads her warriors with lethal efficiency, blades flashing through the air. Linga, the werewolf tyrant, is a whirlwind of pure aggression, leaping into the crowd and pinning her enemies down with raw, beastly strength. The slum's strongest are finally letting it all out. Loey isn't holding back either. The orc leader, now fully recovered thanks to Zenith's previous surgery, crashes into the werewolf lines like a living siege engine. It's chaos, blood, and the sound of breaking bone. In the thick of the fighting, warriors are being struck down left and right. Blood spatters the sand of the arena as the brutal reality of the three-way war begins to take its toll. On any other day, this would be a massacre. Zofia pauses, breathing hard. Something is wrong. She's landed dozens of hits, and she's taken just as many, but the weight of the battle isn't shifting. She looks around, confused by the lack of bodies on the ground. The other tribes are feeling it too. The orcs and werewolves are locked in a stalemate, exhausted but unable to gain any ground. "We can't win at all," one of them shouts, and the frustration starts to boil over. Linga is furious. She's smashed and slashed through 30 enemies by now, yet they're all still standing. No matter how hard they fight, the enemy numbers aren't dwindling. It's like fighting ghosts. Then Linga looks at her own hands. A fresh wound she just received is closing up right before her eyes. It's not just the enemy. Everyone in the arena is being healed instantly, over and over again. They all turn to the top of the stairs. There stands Zenith, his hand glowing with a soft, persistent light. He told them he wasn't going to stop the fight, but he never said he'd let them die either. The realization hits the three leaders like a physical blow. In Zenith's eyes, this isn't a battlefield. It's a giant waiting room. "You're my patience," he says calmly, effectively ending the lethality of the war. Zenith reminds them of his title. He's a shadow healer. While they were busy trying to kill each other, he was busy keeping them all alive. Zofia can only stare in awe as the divine light washes over them. The magnitude of what he's doing is insane. He's been healing hundreds of people simultaneously for hours. Linga and Loe realize that as long as Zenith is standing there, this war will literally never end. They're just tiring themselves out for nothing. Zenith just gives them a simple yup. He's weaponized his healing magic to force a stalemate, showing them the absolute futility of their hatred through sheer endurance. The warriors in the arena look at each other, weapons lowered. Hit someone, get hit back, take revenge. It's a cycle that usually ends in a graveyard. But today, thanks to the doctor, there's no end to it, and the anger starts to drain away. Zenith offers to keep the healing service going as long as they want, for a fee, of course. Loe huffs and drops her massive axe. The clatter of metal on stone signals the end of the conflict. The tension breaks into laughter. Linga, Zofia, and Loe realize they've been played, but they can't help but admit he's right. All that bashing and smashing, and all they have to show for it is a lot of sweat and a very amused doctor. The resentment and hatred that had been festering deep within their tribes was finally let out. They settle the score not with blood, but with a newfound respect. Today, the three most powerful tribes in the slums finally found common ground. Zenith can only watch from a distance, completely baffled by their sudden shift in attitude. Lily giggles, teasingly calling him Mr. Popular, fully aware that while the tribal war has cooled down, a much more personal battle for his attention is only just beginning. As the golden hour settles over the now peaceful arena, Zenith reflects on a philosophy he's always lived by. A first-rate healer doesn't just mend flesh, they make the world a better place. He's achieved his mission for the day, but as he and Lily start their walk home, he's about to find out that even a quiet evening can be full of unexpected heartbeats. With the arena battle finally behind them, Zenith and Lily make their way back. The air is clear, the sun is setting, and for the first time in a long time, the slums feel calm. But Zenith knows this peace is fragile. As they walk, Lily grabs Zenith's arm, her voice barely a whisper. "Hey, Zenith, I like you a lot." It's a moment of pure, honest emotion from the girl he saved, but our doctor? Well, he's a bit of a special case. Zenith smiles back, completely missing the romantic weight of her words. "I like you too, Lily. Now, let's go get paid." Lily can only pout, realizing her master is as oblivious as he is talented. Thus, with a simple healing spell and a lot of patience, a humble shadow healer has ended decades of racial conflict. But every action has a reaction. While the arena stands empty now, the ripples of what happened here are spreading far beyond the slum walls. This single act of peace is about to set Zenus on a collision course with the most powerful forces in the kingdom. We shift our gaze to the royal capital's administrative ward. High above the dirt and grime of the slums, the elite of the kingdom live in marble towers, surrounded by mountains and majesty. But even here they are watching. In a grand office, a high-ranking commander summons his best. There you are, Lady Iron Rose. The vice commander stands tall, her expression as cold and sharp as the sword at her hip. She's caught wind of a rumor that shouldn't be possible. The commander stares out the window, his voice heavy. The conflict between the demi-human tribes and the slums has ceased. For a place that's been a territorial battlefield for years, this sudden peace is more than just unfathomable. It's dangerous. Lady Iron Rose listens intently as the commander reveals the core of the problem. Word has it that a single individual acted as a mediator, bringing the warring factions together. In the eyes of the crown, such an individual is a variable they cannot control. The politics here are brutal. Historically, the kingdom of Herzith has prospered precisely because of its strict caste system. As long as the citizens resent the poor, and the poor are busy killing each other, the balance of the crown is preserved. Peace in the slums is a threat to that balance. As stewards of order, we cannot let this be, the commander declares. If someone out there is influential enough to unite the three major factions, they aren't just a doctor. They're a matter of national security. And that's where the vice commander comes in. Lady Iron Rose accepts the mission without hesitation. If this mediator truly exists, she will find them and she will apprehend them. The commander watches her leave, his hopes high that she can cut this problem out before it spreads. Meanwhile, back at the clinic, Zenus lets out a massive sneeze. He's currently being fussed over by the three tribal leaders, Loe, Zofia, and Linga. They're acting like mother hens, offering him tea and warm fur, much to his annoyance while he's trying to work. Zofia, the lizard man leader, can't stop praising him. Doc, your healing skills never cease to amaze. Zenus just tries to focus on his patient, wondering why it's been so long since Zofia's last visit. The atmosphere is light, but the conversation is about to turn serious. Zofia reveals that they were ambushed during a job yesterday by the royal guards. She mentions a woman who did this to them, someone sharp and unforgiving. As Zenus listens, a pale, shadowy hand reaches out in the foreground. Indeed. It's Carmilla, the Wraith Queen. She warns Zenus that Lady Iron Rose is a nasty piece of work who shoots without twitching an eye. Carmilla finds it amusing that such a woman has set her sights on him, but Lily is just worried about being called a burden. Zenus decides there's no point in keeping his guard up against a threat he hasn't even met yet. He invites Lily to lunch, trying to maintain some semblance of a normal life. But Carmilla's words linger in the air. A wraith's intuition never fails. The lunch break doesn't last long. The tribal leaders are already shouting out their orders. Meat, fish, veggies, as if Zenus is their personal chef. He sighs, feeling more like a zookeeper for high-maintenance beasts than a doctor. He just wants one patient who isn't a handful. As Carmilla vanishes with one last ominous warning, Zenus reaches out as if to catch her. Don't just drop some ominous narration and vanish. Little does he know, he's just inadvertently jinxed his peaceful afternoon. Down in the heart of the slums, a hooded figure walks through the narrow alleys. It's Lady Iron Rose, undercover and observant. She stops in her tracks, unable to believe what she's seeing. Orcs, werewolves, and nagas drinking together, playing cards, and laughing as if they've been friends for life. It cannot be, she whispers. The intelligence was right. The war has stopped. But seeing the absolute harmony of the demi-humans is far more shocking than any report. She needs to know who is responsible for this miracle. She approaches a lizard man smoking a hookah, keeping her face hidden under her cloak. You there? Do you have a moment? She's searching for the truth behind the rumors of this mysterious mediator. The lizard man looks up, noting that she hasn't been to the slums in a while. He tells her things are different now. They've realized their kind isn't so bad once you get to know them. The atmosphere is friendly, almost welcoming, which only confuses her more. I seem to remember your relationship being contentious, she probes, trying to get a straight answer. What happened? The lizard man takes a long drag from his pipe, his expression turning wary. He knows exactly what happened, but he's not sure he wants to share it with a stranger. Nope, sorry. I don't know who you are, but I ain't talking. The lizard man waves her off, his loyalty to the doctor outweighing any desire to help a stranger. He turns his back and starts to walk away, thinking he's ended the conversation, but he's just provoked a woman who doesn't take no for an answer. Wait, she calls out, but her tone has shifted from curious to cold. As the lizard man continues to ignore her, the mask of the humble traveler begins to crumble. Lady Iron Rose isn't here to play games, and if the slums won't give up their mediator willingly, she's more than ready to extract the truth. Patience isn't exactly a virtue for Lady Iron Rose. When a lizard man tries to walk away, she moves with blinding speed, cornering him in the narrow alley. The mask of a curious traveler drops, replaced by the cold efficiency of a royal executioner. A sharp metallic click echoes through the silence. She presses her weapon directly against his stomach, the cold steel a grim promise of what happens next if he doesn't start talking. The lizard man freezes, the gravity of his situation finally sinking in. Answer my question, she commands, her eyes narrowing beneath her hood. Who is this mediator? She doesn't have time for slum loyalty or tribal secrets. She needs a name, and she's willing to draw blood to get it. But even with a gun to his gut, the lizard man doesn't flinch. Shoot me if you like. I ain't snitching. He knows that whatever pain she can inflict is nothing compared to the debt they owe the doctor. For the people of the slums, Zenus isn't just a mediator. He's their salvation. The standoff is interrupted by a familiar voice. Be boss, the lizard man shouts as Zofia and her subordinates round the corner. Iron Rose's eyes widen. She wasn't expecting the tribe leader to show up so soon, and certainly not with backup. Calculated as always, Iron Rose decides to withdraw. Fighting the lizard man's siblings on their own turf is a risk she doesn't need to take. Not yet. She slips back into the shadows, but as she watches them, something far more intriguing than their loyalty catches her eye. She stares at their arms, her mind racing. She remembers their last encounter vividly. Those limbs should have been mangled, torn, and injured beyond any hope of repair. Yet here they are, moving with perfect fluidity and not a single scar to show for it. A cold sweat breaks across her brow. What in the world is going on? She realized that this mediator isn't just a political threat. They possess a level of healing magic that defies the very laws of nature. The hunt for Zenus just became a lot more complicated. Zenus is shivering outside his clinic, and it's not just the cold air. He's got a bad feeling about what's coming next. Or maybe it's just the stress of running a hospital for outcasts in the slums. Just as things finally seem to calm down after his last patients left, Zenus settles onto his sofa for a well-deserved break. But of course, peace never lasts long in the Lost Garden. A sudden kerchuk at the door puts him on high alert. A mysterious woman draped in a tattered cloak wanders in. She claims she has a poor sense of direction and has ended up lost. Meet Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, though right now, she's just trying to play the part of a confused traveler looking for her way back to the city. Before the conversation can go any further, Lily enters the room, balancing a tray of tea. The little elf just wants to be a good host, but her presence immediately changes the atmosphere. The second Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, lays eyes on the young elf. Her expression sharpens. Something about seeing Lily here triggers her knightly instincts, and not in a good way. In a flash, the lost traveler act is gone. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, draws a magical firearm, thanking Providence for leading her right to her mark. To her, this looks like a textbook case of abduction. Zenus stares down the barrel of the gun as it clicks. He barely has time to process the sudden escalation before the trigger is pulled. Bang! The shot rings out, filling the room with a blinding flash and magic energy. It's a direct hit at point-blank range. Smoke and sparks fly everywhere. In her mind, Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, has already neutralized the threat, convinced she's just saved a child from a dangerous kidnapper. She quickly explains her mission. She's been pursuing a major case involving child abductions. To her, seeing a human with an elf child in this part of town was all the proof she needed. Poor Lily is absolutely terrified by the sudden violence. "I have found you, kidnapper," Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, declares. She points out the obvious logic. An elf cannot be the daughter of a human. She's ready to take Zenus into custody right then and there. But Lily isn't having it. She shouts at the top of her lungs that she's got it all wrong. Zenus didn't kidnap her. He saved her. The look of pure shock on Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, S face is priceless. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, stands there processing the new information as the smoke clears. The awkwardness in the room is thick enough to cut with a sword. She admits she might have jumped the gun a bit, but Lily snaps back that she jumped it a lot. It's hard to look cool as a high-ranking officer when you've just tried to blast an innocent doctor. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, offers a stiff apology, blaming her impulsiveness. She assumes Zenus won't be moving for a while after taking that hit, but then she notices something impossible. Zenus is standing right there, completely unharmed, casually scratching his head. He didn't even break a sweat. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, can't believe her eyes. How is he still in one piece? Zenus explains he simply used protection magic. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, is skeptical. A mere ordinary spell shouldn't have been able to stop her specialized magical firearm. But for Zenus, ordinary means something very different than it does for everyone else. She leans in close, staring him down. She's looking for even a tiny scratch, but there's nothing. She starts to realize this isn't just some back-alley healer. She starts spiraling into theories, wondering if he's a secret archmage of great renown who's been training in protective arts since childhood. Zenus just stands there like, nope, none of that is true. Finally, she drops the cloak and reveals her true identity. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander of the Royal Guard. She's convinced she's found someone special, while Zenus is just wondering who she even is. "Iron Rose," she says, striking a pose. She immediately follows up with his splendid idea. She wants Zenus to help her with her investigation. Zenus, on the other hand, is just hoping his sofa survived the encounter. While the two are talking, we see Carmilla, the Wraith Queen, laughing hysterically in the background. She's clearly enjoying the chaos and Zenus' awkward situation. Poor guy can't catch a break. They finally sit down for tea, and Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, gets serious. She reveals she's in the slums on a classified mission to locate and apprehend a certain individual. It's a lot to dump on a guy you just shot at. Zenus sips his tea, unable to resist pointing out how unclassified this secret mission has become. Despite her fierce reputation, she's being surprisingly open with him. He leans in, curious to see just how much she knows, and asks for the target's name. She whispers it like a curse. The Mediator. The name hangs heavy in the small room, and as Zenus struggles to keep his innocent doctor mask from slipping, he realizes the woman hunting him is already starting to notice the strange peace he's brought to these streets. As Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, looks out at the slums, she can't help but notice how much they've changed. Even the fierce demi-humans seem more settled now. Meanwhile, Zenus is trying his best to look innocent while Carmilla hangs from the ceiling, grinning like she knows exactly how much trouble he's in. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, suddenly slams her hand down, declaring her resolve as a guardian of order. She won't tolerate anyone with the kind of influence the Mediator holds, calling them an instrument of evil. Zenus just stands there, sweating buckets, and wondering when his life became a fantasy thriller. Zenus tries to play it cool, suggesting that maybe this person just wants to stay under the radar, and it's best to leave them be. But Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, isn't buying it. She stares at him with those sharp eyes, making him feel like he's under a microscope. She gets right in his face, suspecting he might actually know the Mediator. Zenus panics, stammering that it's just a hunch, but the tension in the room is high enough to snap his sword. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, is like a hound on a scent, and she's not letting go. Lily pipes up, defending the mediator. She thinks they aren't ambitious and just don't like seeing people get hurt. Zenus looks at her, touched by her loyalty, while Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, listens intently to the little elf's perspective. Zenus tries to usher Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, out, eager to get back to his quiet life. But she's not done yet, turning back to shout a question at Lily about the mediator's identity. Lily, the master of playing dumb, just whistles and pretends she didn't hear a thing. Suddenly, Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, stops and asks about the bed right by the entrance. Zenus breaks into a cold sweat, making up a story about it being an extra bed he was going to throw away. He's terrified she's realized this is an illegal clinic. His lie backfires spectacularly when Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, asks if she can stay there. Both Zenus and Lily are left gaping in shock. Talk about an unexpected house guest. She decides this hideaway is the perfect base of operations for her mission and even offers to pay for the lodgings. Zenus and Lily look like they've seen a ghost. Or maybe they just realize their secret is in even more danger now. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, grabs Zenus' hand, thanking him for his cooperation. She's determined to find the great evil known as the mediator, while the actual mediator is just trying to find a way to breathe. And so, Zenus Clinic gains another troublesome resident. Night falls over the slums, but the quiet of the city hides the chaotic energy brewing inside the doctor's home. Later that night, Zenus and Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, stand by the window. She notes how quiet it is, while Zenus bluntly tells her she should really head home once she's done. He's clearly not enjoying the company as much as she is. She teases him about being eager to get rid of her and asks if undead roam the area, since the place was once wiped out by a plague. Zenus tries to scare her off by mentioning there might be a wraith or 5 around. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, scoffs at the idea, claiming wraiths are rare, apex undead creatures. Zenus just thinks to himself, yeah well, I see one every day, while Carmilla hangs right behind the knight, staring at the back of her head. The tension is broken by a loud slam as tea is served. Lily is clearly not happy with the new arrangement, and the atmosphere at the table is anything but cozy. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, takes a sip but immediately blushes and gasps. It's way too hot. She admits that hot liquids are her one weakness. Zenus just sighs, watching her blow on her tea while Lily fumes in the background. Lily is growling with jealousy, her tiny elf face scrunched up in anger. She stomps over to Zenus, who tries to calm her down with a head pat. It seems to work, but only for a second. After the pat, Lily looks incredibly smug, feeling like she's regained her territory. Carmilla is just floating there, laughing at the display of pure jealousy. Zenus is totally oblivious to the silent battle happening around him. Carmilla pops up to whisper in Zenus' ear, diagnosing Lily's behavior as classic jealousy. Zenus starts to realize that Lily has indeed become much clingier than usual whenever the knight is around. The invisible Wraith Queen continues her commentary, explaining that Lily is trying to assert dominance over this new intruder. Zenus is terrified by Carmilla's sudden appearance, while Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, just continues to blow on her tea, oblivious to the spirit. Carmilla keeps teasing Zenus, pointing out the battle for a lady's pride that's about to unfold. Zenus tells her to shut up, but deep down, he knows she's right. Lily's clinginess is reaching a whole new level. Lily goes into full caretaker mode, feeding Zenus apples, fixing his hair, and blowing on his tea for him. She's attached to him day in and day out, making sure Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, knows exactly who Zenus belongs to. But Zenus has no reaction to Lily's efforts, leaving her frustrated. She decides she has no choice but to use a secret technique that Carmilla taught her. She gears herself up for something big. Lily suddenly lunges forward and squishes Zenus' cheeks with all her might. Caught completely off guard, Zenas can only stare in confusion as her face turns a deep shade of crimson, signaling she's about to do something drastically bold. "I won't let you sleep tonight," Lily shouts at the top of her lungs, her declaration echoing through the clinic. Zenas is left frozen by the sheer intensity of her words, unaware that her secret technique is about to take a very different turn than either of them expected. Despite her bold declaration from earlier, Lily is out like a light, sleeping soundly on Zenas' lap. Zenas can't help but curse Carmilla's secret technique in his head, even if it did lead to this peaceful moment. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, watches on, noting just how deeply the little elf has fallen asleep. Once Lily is tucked safely into bed, Zenas returns to the main room to find Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, lost in thought. She looks troubled, the weight of her duty clearly pressing down on her even in this quiet clinic. Zenas asks what's on her mind, breaking the heavy silence. The conversation turns to Lily's past and her mention of being captured by slavers. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, admits she doesn't know anything about such operations in this area, while Zenas explains that he only interacted with them briefly to save the girl. To him, medical attention was the only priority that mattered. Zenas can't resist a bit of a jab, asking if that's the real reason she shot him earlier. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, offers a sincere apology, admitting that impulsiveness is her greatest weakness. Zenas dryly notes that she doesn't seem to have many weaknesses to begin with, but she takes it as a serious compliment. She looks at her hands, reflecting on the many cases she has resolved as a knight. To her, justice isn't just a concept. It's a series of problems solved and criminals brought to light. She takes immense pride in her record of service to the crown. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, truly embodies the image of the perfect royal knight, a hero to the people who is unwavering in her pursuit of order. But behind that steel resolve, there's a flicker of something else, a nagging doubt about a case that doesn't add up. She turns the focus back to Zenas, pressing him about his mastery of the protective arts. Zenas tries to be modest, insisting he's no master, but she isn't having it. Then, she drops a question that catches him off guard. Would regrowing an arm be possible with healing magic? Zenas looks at her, confused by the sudden technical question. Lady Iron Rose, Vice Commander, explains that such a feat is legendary, something only a saintess or a healer of the highest caliber could ever hope to achieve. This isn't just idle curiosity. She has a very specific reason for asking. The room falls silent as they sit across from each other. Zenas can feel the intensity of her gaze. She knows she's searching for something or someone who defies the laws of magic as most people know them. The clinic, normally a place of healing, now feels like an interrogation room. She recounts a past altercation she had with the bandit leader, Zofia Galewind, in the Nobles District. During the fight, she dealt a grievous wound to Zofia Galewind, his arm, a wound that should have been permanent and life-altering for anyone, especially a warrior. But the mystery deepened when she later spotted Zofia Galewind in the slums. To her absolute shock, the limb had been fully healed, showing no sign of the battle. This impossible recovery is exactly why she's hunting the mediator, the only person capable of such a miracle. Little does she know, the doctor sitting in front of her is the very man she's looking for. Krishna, Iron Rose, sits across from Zenas, her thoughts consumed by the mystery of the mediator. She wonders what kind of person could command the respect of someone as wild as Zofia Galewind. Krishna, Iron Rose, continues, her gaze piercing. To her, anyone capable of healing such severe injuries would possess an influence far too dangerous to be left unchecked. Zenas listens silently, a beads of sweat forming as he realizes just how sharp her intuition is. Despite her suspicions, Krishna, Iron Rose, remains composed, announcing that her formal investigation will begin tomorrow. Zenas can't help but feel a sense of unease. This woman is far more observant than he anticipated. Krishna, Iron Rose, vows to personally hunt down and arrest the mediator, whom she views as the root of all chaos in the slums. When Zenas questions her deep-seated grudge against the poor, her expression darkens. "It is not a fun tale," she replies, her eyes distant. The memory of her mother, the epitome of kindness, floods back. Long ago, she spent her days selflessly feeding the starving residents of the slums, driven by a heart that knew no bounds. But that kindness was met with a brutal betrayal. One rainy day, her mother was brought back as a cold corpse, murdered by the very people she helped, all for the sake of her wedding ring. No one in the slums stood up to save her. Standing by the cart in the pouring rain, young Krishna, Iron Rose, made a solemn vow. She would become a flawless hero, an Iron Rose whose cold mask would never slip until every evildoer in the slums was brought to justice. The trauma of that day robbed Krishna, Iron Rose, of her ability to smile. As she prepares to leave, the weight of her past remains as heavy as the armor she wears. "I shall return tonight," she states firmly. As Krishna, Iron Rose, departs, Carmilla appears, floating beside Zenas. She teasingly reminds him that there's nothing he can do to change such deep-seated hatred. Zenas can only offer a weary thanks for the observation as he tries to maintain the heavy atmosphere. Later, Zenas finds himself treating Zofia Galewind, the boisterous bandit leader. She claims to have some vital information, but Zenas' focus is on her health. "I can't cure death," he reminds her, urging her to take better care of herself. Zofia Galewind warns Zenas that Krishna, Iron Rose, has been asking questions about the mediator. But before they can discuss a plan, the door swings open. Krishna has accidentally wandered back in, claiming she got lost. The tension in the room is palpable as the two powerful women stand face to face. It's a meeting that neither expected, and Zenas is caught right in the crossfire. Recognition strikes like a lightning bolt. Both women shout in shock, and Krishna, Iron Rose, immediately draws her weapon. Zenas panics, stammering an explanation that Carmilla finds hilariously similar to a husband caught cheating. Zenas is left desperate and frantic, pleading for a chance to explain the situation while Carmilla watches the chaos with devilish delight. Krishna, Iron Rose, isn't interested in excuses. She demands the truth now. The situation escalates as Krishna, Iron Rose, demands to know why Zofia, Galewind, is there, only to have the bandit leader throw the question right back at her. The two fierce women glare at each other, weapons at the ready. Krishna, Iron Rose, warns Zenas that Zofia, Galewind, is a notorious criminal, but Zofia mocks her for pointing a gun in a peaceful clinic. Despite the hostility, Krishna hesitates, not wanting to damage the place that Zenas calls home. Krishna, Iron Rose, notices something impossible. Zofia, Galewind, his arm, which should have been crippled, is completely healed. She knows immediately that only the mediator could be responsible for such a miraculous recovery. Zofia, Galewind, doesn't back down, shouting that the mediator heals those in need and earns the people's gratitude. She challenges Krishna, Iron Rose, S narrow view of justice, asking what could possibly be wrong with helping others. Krishna, Iron Rose, argues that the mediator's growing influence over the unsavory types of the slums is a threat to the law. Zofia, Galewind, scoffs at the knight's prejudice, tired of hearing how everything is always the poor's fault. Zofia, Galewind, shifts the focus to a much darker reality, a child trafficking ring that the Royal Guard is supposed to be investigating. She knows that bad eggs aren't just limited to the slums. The bombshell drops when Zofia, Galewind, reveals that the mastermind behind the trafficking is actually a noble. Krishna, Iron Rose, is visibly shaken, her world of black and white justice beginning to crumble. Zofia, Galewind, explains how the noble has been moving the children to a hidden room in his manor to avoid the Royal Guard. She mocks Krishna, Iron Rose, for thinking that a highborn criminal would ever leave an obvious trail. The name Kalendor leaves Zofia, Galewind, his lips, shocking Krishna, Iron Rose, to her core. To the public, Lord Kalendor is a passionate supporter of orphans, but Zofia urges her to look past the carefully crafted surface. Zofia, Galewind, passionately defends the mediator, explaining that they see past status, appearance, and even a person's history. For this mysterious healer, there is no judgment, only the simple, unwavering desire to save whoever is suffering right in front of them. Images of the many lives Zenus has quietly saved flash by as Zofia, Galewind, declares Krishna, Iron Rose, as justice a hollow sham. She shouts that while the night sees only criminals, the mediator sees people, pushing the tension in the room to a breaking point that Zenus can no longer ignore. Zenus steps in, his voice firm as he declares Zofia, Galewind, is his patient. He refuses to let Krishna, Iron Rose, take her, demanding she stand back. The tension in the room reaches a boiling point as the night's suspicion of the doctor deepens. In a moment of shocking honesty, Zenus drops his facade. He admits to being the very mediator that Krishna, Iron Rose, has been hunting. Both Zofia, Galewind, and Krishna are left speechless by his sudden confession. Krishna, Iron Rose, laughs off the claim, refusing to believe a mere master of protective magic could be the legendary healer. She fires a warning shot, frustrated by what she sees as a blatant lie. Zenus tries to apologize, but the bridge between them is burning fast. To Krishna, Iron Rose, the truth is now clear as day. Zenus is a sympathizer for the demi-humans and the mediator. She declares that the people need a perfect hero, a role she is determined to fulfill. With a final, cold gaze, she announces she will find another base for her operations and turns to leave. As she walks out the door, Krishna, Iron Rose, mutters to herself, "I am no sham." Her resolve is unshakable, even if she has to face the corruption of the city alone. Zenus and Zofia, Galewind, watch her go, the weight of her conviction hanging heavy in the air. Zofia, Galewind, is quick to apologize for the mess, but Zenus is already looking out the window. He notices Krishna, Iron Rose, heading in a strange direction, away from the slums and toward the high-end district. Lily joins them, sensing the unease. Zenus watches as Krishna, Iron Rose, approaches a massive, opulent mansion. He realizes that she isn't just getting lost again. She's following the trail that Zofia, Galewind, provided, right to the heart of the noble district. Inside the manor, Krishna, Iron Rose, sits across from Lord Kalendor himself. She offers her apologies for the sudden visit, while the noble expresses his surprise at a visit from the vice-commander of the Royal Guard. The game of masks has begun. Lord Kalendor offers tea, and Krishna, Iron Rose, finds herself struggling with a hot liquid, a rare moment of vulnerability. Inwardly, she tells herself that the rumors of his involvement in trafficking are surely nonsense, and she's only here to confirm his innocence. The conversation turns to security, with Kalendor mentioning the threat of lizardmen and bandits. He sounds like a concerned noble, but Krishna, Iron Rose, remains vigilant, listening for any slip in his story as she surveys the luxurious room. Krishna, Iron Rose, proposes a tour of the estate, claiming she wants to identify high-risk areas to bolster his security. Lord Kalendor watches her closely, his fake smile never wavering as he considers her request. With a cheerful facade, Lord Kalendor agrees to be her guide, noting he has time before dinner. He leads her through the grand hallways, flanked by his own armed guards, while Krishna, Iron Rose, maintains her professional knightly persona. They move through the estate, from the guarded entrances to the lavish private quarters and even the kitchen. To any outsider, it's just a routine inspection, but Krishna, Iron Rose, is searching for anything out of place. Looking out over the well-manicured gardens, Krishna, Iron Rose, begins to doubt her mission. Everything seems perfectly normal. Empty rumors, then, she thinks, feeling foolish for wasting her time on a hunch. As they conclude the tour, Krishna, Iron Rose, compliments the tight security. She asks for a quick trip to the lavatory before she departs, and Kalendor graciously grants her request, seemingly having nothing to hide. Once alone in the hallway, Krishna, Iron Rose, S expression shifts. She finds it odd that a mid-level noble would have such extreme security concentrated specifically on the grounds. The puzzle pieces don't quite fit, and her instincts are screaming that something is wrong. Her eyes lock onto a simple well in the courtyard, surrounded by guards. A seed of suspicion takes root. Could it be? She wonders, her heart beginning to race as she realizes the guards' positions are defensive, protecting the well rather than the house. Krishna, Iron Rose, begins to sneak through the garden, using the hedges for cover. She regrets having to leave her magical guns at the door, but her sense of duty outweighs her fear of being unarmed. She has to know what's at the bottom of that well. Making her move, she reaches the well and finds a ladder bolted to the side. With a final look around to ensure she isn't seen, she begins her descent into the dark, silent shaft. The descent feels like it takes an eternity. As she climbs deeper, she realizes the well is completely dry, which only confirms her suspicions. This isn't a water source, it's an entrance. Krishna, Iron Rose, reaches the bottom and finds a stone corridor leading away from the shaft. Her breath catches in her throat as she whispers, "This cannot be." The reality of Zofia, Galewind's words is beginning to dawn on her. At the end of the passage, she encounters a heavy, locked wooden door. This is her one chance to find the truth. She carefully begins to pick the lock, praying that she's wrong about what lies on the other side. The door creaks open, and Krishna, Iron Rose, is met with a sight that shatters her heart. She stands in the doorway, her eyes wide with horror as she realizes the full extent of Lord Kalendor's cruelty. "Oh no," she gasps. Inside the cold, damp cell, Krishna, Iron Rose, gazes upon a sight that shatters her worldview. Several children huddled together, blindfolded and bound. The charitable Lord Kalendor was a lie. This is a dungeon for the innocent, and her own justice has been blind to it until now. One boy trembles, his voice small and terrified as he asks if she is someone scary. Krishna, Iron Rose, rushes to the bars, her voice soft with a promise to protect them. In this dark abyss, she finally feels like the hero of justice she always claimed to be, unaware of the danger closing in behind her. Krishna, Iron Rose, tries to reassure the terrified children, promising to return with help soon. She begins to introduce herself as a hero of justice, but her words are cut short by a sudden, deafening bang. A searing pain erupts in her back as she's struck by a magical blast. Standing behind her is Lord Kalendor, a twisted smirk on his face as he holds Krishna, Iron Rose's own magical guns. He mocks the quality of the Royal Guard's weaponry, realizing just how effective they are for keeping brats in line. The betrayal is complete. Kalendor laughs, explaining that he followed her when she took too long to return from the lavatory. Krishna, Iron Rose, is left gasping on the floor, her blood pooling on the cold stone as the man she thought was a pillar of the community reveals his true, monstrous nature. The noble's laughter fills the dungeon as he continues his assault, both physical and verbal. He sneers at Krishna, Iron Rose, calling her a lowly knight for daring to think she could challenge a man of his status. Every word is a jagged blade, cutting through her ideals as much as the magic burns her flesh. Krishna, Iron Rose, collapses, her strength fading as Kalendor rants about the privileges of nobility. To him, the abducted children are nothing more than slum brats, and he believes his status gives him the right to do as he pleases. "Forgive me," Krishna whispers, her spirit breaking alongside her body. With a cold finality, Kalendor points the gun at Krishna, Iron Rose's face, declaring that her insolence will cost her life. Tears stream down her blood-stained cheeks as she thinks of her mother. In her final moments, she mourns her failure to become the perfect hero she always dreamed of being. Suddenly, the silence of the dungeon is shattered by the sound of an intrusion. "Thieves! Thieves have broken in!" A voice cries out, and Kalendor's triumphal expression turns to one of pure shock. The impenetrable fortress has been breached. Zofia, Galewind, kicks the door off its hinges, her eyes blazing with fury. She mocks the knight's recklessness even as she comes to her rescue. But it's the figure walking in behind her that truly changes the atmosphere. Zenith has arrived. Krishna, Iron Rose, looks up through her tears, seeing the doctor standing over her. The man she once hunted is now her only hope. "Don't mind me," Zenith says calmly, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Just doing a house call." Zenith stands tall, a confident smile playing on his lips as he prepares to work his magic. He warns Krishna, Iron Rose, that his services aren't cheap. It's going to cost her a killing. The table has been turned, and the doctor is ready to collect.